our council staff. As you indicated, the park police is just one component of the overall park and planning budget, and for FY20, the proposed budget is approximately 14 million with 116.3 work years. The proposed funding represents about a 0.2% reduction from the approved FY19 operating budget. 2 new positions have been requested. They're both sworn police officers, but I'll get into that in a minute because they were provided as offered reductions. The park police will be required to achieve $860,000 in laps for FY20, and that's compared to $838,000 last year. There's a staffing chart available for you on page 2, and it shows a total complement of 119 people. Of those, 96 are sworn. As far as the offered reduction, the PHED committee reviewed the entire park and planning proposed budget on April 24th, and at that time, park and planning had provided an offered reduction that impacts the park police budget. The park police had initially requested 2 new police officer positions to provide security at the new Wheaton headquarters building, and while that building was scheduled to open in late May of 2020, adding those 2 positions during the fiscal year would have allowed park police to add the 2 positions to the recruit class, and they would have graduated by the time the building was opened. Park police advised instead it'll provide security at this building in FY20 using a combination of reassigned existing staff and the use of overtime. We also have some contractual increases on page 3 that totals about $18,000, and they're listed for you. Naloxone funding, this has been going on in most of the public safety police departments around the county. In FY20, the budget request includes $7,500 for the purchase of these types of kits. To date, 35 2-packs have been issued to officers, and these additional funds will cover the cost of 96 2-pack units. They do have expiration dates, and the current supply expires in September of this year. Last year, the park police officers encountered fentanyl twice. They did not have to administer naloxone to any park patrons. I have crime statistic goals and performance measures for you. That's attached at circles 6 and 7. Part 1 crimes, which are the more serious crimes, were up slightly compared to the previous year with 135 total. That was an increase of 6. There were no homicides in 2018 compared to 2 the year before. Rapes, however, have increased from 1 in 2017 to 5 in 2018. Part 2 crimes were up by 49 additional incidents from 970 to 1,019. I have 2 other things for you. One is a participation in local and federal gang task forces, which I thought would be of interest to the committee to learn what they do. And then we also have a deer management update. I'm not sure which one you were interested in first.
I think both are whatever they would like to do is what we will do.
Okay, we could start with the deer management update.
Well, first off, let me welcome the chief and Mr. Riley here. And I guess it was this week when I came to an award ceremony on behalf of the council to really congratulate your officers for doing such a fine job. So we thank you publicly there, and we thank you publicly here. But if you'd like to give us an update on the information.
Well, thank you all very much, and it's good to see familiar faces, but also Mr. Friedson. I look forward to working with you as well as a new member as well. Well, I'm obviously Chief Darrell McSwain. With me is Mr. Riley, and certainly he will speak. But Mr. Riley, you want to start off, or do you want me to speak?
No, I just wanted to say this is, you all, I think, know of Chief McSwain and his service with County Police. This is the first time he's here in front of you in the budget capacity as
I saw him sweating.
Chief of the Park Police. So since it's his first time, you need to be incredibly kind to him. And I really couldn't be more honored to have such a capable and qualified chief of our Park Police.
All right, so what I'll do is I'll be very brief. I just want to give you almost like a quick assessment of where Park Police is moving towards as far as some priorities. I will be very, very brief, knowing that your schedule is certainly tight during this time of year. And then certainly we'll get into some of the specifics regarding whether it's the deer management program or any other questions you may have. But if there's 3 things I certainly want to focus on with the Park Police, it's going to be strategic deployment of where we put our staff based upon various information that comes back to us. Leveraging technology, that's part of this package here, and then also smart planning in general. We have a nationally recognized, award-winning park system, and certainly that's not by mistake nor by accident, but it's due to the thousands of park checks by the personnel that I work with, both the men and women, and we'll continue to be committed to that. And one of the things we have found is that with limited staffing, we have to make sure that we're in the right places at the right time, quite frankly. So what we've done is we've solicited community feedback, we've considered population density issues, park usage and pedestrian bicyclist traffic, and many, many other issues as well to identify specific locations where you can expect to see our presence that much more often, with the main goal of preventing issues from occurring. So whether it's the Capitol Crescent Trail, Long Branch, Matthew Henson, Northwest Branch, and/or Sligo Creek, you can expect to see us on horses more often, bikes and ATVs, and less, quite frankly, with cars, because our goal is to be able to reach out, have people to be able to talk to us, share their thoughts and ideas so that they get to know us that much more frequently. And anecdotally, I'm starting to see just that. We've challenged our staff to do so. Last year, we had about 570 park checks on those respective locations. They're already up to, as of mid-April, as many as 500. So we're on pace for about 1,500 park checks just on those locations alone, which will represent about a 260% increase as far as our coverage. Also, Vision Zero is going to be a big part as well. We don't have many of the longer roadways, if you will, except for obviously the parkways, but there are certain crossings that are obviously of importance to the community members in our society. And we've identified 5, of course, you certainly know about the Veers Mill and that area, but also Georgia and Hewitt, Capitol Crescent, Little Falls, to give an idea. We'll be leveraging technology. We speak about body-worn cameras in here for the sake of transparency and accountability, but also actionable intelligence, utilizing certain software to ensure that whether it's crime issues or traffic deployments, we're where we need to be at any given time. And then also utilizing that for community outreach purposes, whether it be ADA compliant as it relates to our website, also just making it easier for people to reach out and contact us, and also, of course, utilizing social media as well for us, emergency notifications. And then smart planning. Our smart planning, really, quite frankly, is going to be driven by our 3-year strategic plan, which we hope to finish very, very soon. And it'll be centered around President Obama's commission on 21st century policing, and in those 6 pillars, those will be the driving areas that we'll focus on. We'll continue with our weekly accountability meetings to ensure that we're meeting expectations, not only this council, but also the public in general. And then, of course, we'll also be partnering with nonprofit organizations as well, and or other government agencies. Of course, we work well with our Recreation Department over many, many moons, but also we want to work with other nonprofit agencies. We come across the homeless on occasion within the park system, and we don't want to just simply displace them, but for those who are suffering either from mental illness, substance abuse, or other issues, finding the right fit for them so that they don't become a chronic issue, but hopefully we can help them make them productive members in society and meet some of their needs. Not to mention issues involving truancy and gang issues as well. So what I will do is I'll transition very quickly to some of the more specific issues in the packet here. The Deer Management Program. I recently had the fortune to go out with that group, spend a night out with them. It is tremendously backbreaking work, trust me. I was very, very impressed. But what I was really impressed with was the level of attention to detail this group. Not only the officers, but the stewardship members. Bill Hamilton is here with us to talk more specifically about that. But also the volunteers. They literally have this down to a science, and it's really making a big difference. There's a lot of focus on safety, but it's certainly making a big difference in the community. So, Bill?
Good morning. For the record, Bill Hamilton, Manager of the Natural Resources Stewardship Section for Parks, which has oversight of the Deer Management Program. And for the new council members, I also am chair of the county's Deer Management Work Group. So feel free to send your questions for you or your constituents along, and be glad to attend to those. As a Department of Parks, we continue to strive to address deer impacts across the county. This year, our population management efforts resulted in about 1,000, just over 1,000 deer harvested from parkland, and we were able to implement new population management efforts in 4 park units across 3 locations. Those included some of the down county areas, Northwest Branch Stream Valley Park and Sligo Creek Stream Valley Park Unit 5 in the Wheaton Silver Spring area, and Watts Branch Stream Valley Parks Units 3 and 4 in the Trevilla area. We have a goal of continued increase and expansion of our program to include approximately 500 acres annually for the next 5 years. That's one of the performance measures we set as a department, to add 2,500 acres by fiscal year 2025. Our past public safety and PHED committees requested that we do so expediently, but also very efficiently. So we're focusing on how we can reallocate resources to do so without expanding very much in the way of budget increase requests. And as you'll notice, we haven't asked for any new monies in the last 2 years. So I'm hopeful that you're thankful for that. But we do continue to expand. Well, I will note deer vehicle collisions did increase this year in the county by a very slight number. It wasn't statistically significant, but they did increase, and that's disappointing. It's the opposite way that we wish to go. But we've got staff evaluating that now to see if we can make any analytical sense of that. But we continue to attend to this. We're expanding our archery programs and our sharpshooting programs regularly.
And of course, the deer are not just in the county parks. I mean, they're at NIST, they're at, at the state parks, they're in a lot of other areas.
That's absolutely correct. And the truth,
Thank you for clarifying that, because the people who contact me do believe they're my deer.
Yeah. Well, I still believe that too, but they're not just in the parks, yeah. Yeah.
so to your point, that's very correct. And as chair of the Deer Management Work Group, we do address deer management on other public lands, and we do assist private landowners to implement deer. One thing that this council has pursued in the past was expansion onto the C&O Canal National Park system, and that actually took place this February and March. So we're moving in the right direction. And our Deer Management Work Group, in combination with the state DNR, worked with 2 citizens activity groups and homeowners associations in the Silver Spring area to implement archery on homeowners association lands, and that's been very successful. So we're making movement in the right direction. We do have some areas of the county, in particular Rockville. The city of Rockville has struggled to come up with a solution, and we're noticing increased impacts in that jurisdiction. So we are attending to places off of parkland as well. But certainly today I can only speak for parks.
Thank you. Councilmember Jawando, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. Good to meet you, Chief. Good to see you again. And Mike, always good to see you. Question on the, when we were running for office, deer came up a lot more than I thought it would. And one of the questions I had, while I appreciate you not asking for an increase in budget in a tight budget year, I am curious, are there new strategies? I see we've got 1,000 mostly through the hunting programs and the sharpshooting programs. Are there any other strategies you're looking into, either in this capacity as part of the work group, to change or look at different approaches? I'm just curious of where that's at. Could you? And I think the public, I got a lot of questions about that.
We look at all strategies that are available and that are being researched. We've been doing one of the more prominent techniques for managing impacts is through non-lethal strategies like immunocontraception or sterilization. We send staff on the regular to conferences and work group meetings for those. We are following the research. We're participating in the research. You may be glad to know that this region is a hotbed for those kind of research projects. You mentioned NIST. NIST has done a contraception program for over 20 years. NIH is using surgical sterilization. We've actually floated that to some of our constituents. It's still in its infancy and hasn't really been demonstrated to do much in terms of population reduction. But we're aware that techniques like that may be the only option in some of the more developed areas where we can't safely discharge weapons. Tacoma Park being one. Tacoma Park is a hotbed of deer impacts, and we need to find a solution. And so we're trying to pick and choose amongst some of the available options. There isn't a lot available.
That's okay. That's good to know. And I know that it's kind of an oxymoron, the sterilization program for 20 years. It kind of means that it hasn't been working.
It is not.
But you're right, in the urban areas where you see more and more deer impact, you can't, it's not safe to be out there firing weapons. So I'm glad you're looking into it, but just keep us posted, because obviously I know this is a hard problem to keep on top of. But,
Any, go ahead, please.
Are we,
Well, have you
wait
finished
until
your,
we're wrapped
okay,
up
have you finished your presentations? And
Happy to share about the task force.
yeah, please.
Okay, and I'd like at this time Captain Murphy to come up here with me as well. As you, of course, know, gang issues are a challenge within the entire Washington metropolitan region, just simply not in Montgomery County. And one of the things that we know also is that the gangs utilize the park systems for various reasons, whether it's for holding meetings and or other nefarious activities, if you will. One of the important things that we have found with gang activity is sharing information. No one agency has everything, and of course gang members don't care about jurisdictional boundaries. So we have found it very, very important, whether it's at the state, local, or federal level, to work with the various partners for the safety of our citizens who visit the various parks. As such, we have been involved with the various task forces that are in the region itself. We're also about to add an officer to the county task force with the county police, because again, we want to ensure that what we're seeing in the parks, we're also sharing with the park or the county police and vice versa, and we have a very good working relationship. So ultimately, the outcomes will be greater than the sum of our individual parts. So to speak specifically about some of the task forces and or the FBI task force, which Captain Mike Murphy is a part of, I'll have him share and hit the button there.
Good morning. My name is Captain Mike Murphy. I'm with the Park Police. I'm assigned as the Assistant Chief in charge of investigations, and I'm also a member of the FBI Safe Streets Task Force, and that encompasses a variety of different agencies that participate on that across the state of Maryland. We are regularly getting together to share information and working on joint cases that affect each of the jurisdictions, many of the jurisdictions throughout Montgomery County, Frederick County, Annapolis, and Prince George's County. So we're attempting to address any of the violent crime associated with some of the gangs that are operating in these areas.
Okay, thank you. Any,
on this
Chair?
topic or in
Well, I
general?
think in general, yeah. Well, go ahead, please, you're
no,
the
Mr.
first.
Richard can go first.
Okay,
I'll
go
go
ahead.
Thank you all. There we go. Thank you all for being here this morning and for the update. It's very helpful. Chief, I just wanted to ask you what, from your point of view, what is the impact on operations of the 9 vacancies, 7 sworn, 2 non-sworn in your force?
It's a big challenge. The smaller an agency is, the greater the impact of vacancies, because you just simply don't have the ability to kind of cover deficiencies with additional staff or reshift, because ultimately if you shift from one area, you're basically sacrificing work that you do in another place. Currently, I have a minimum, as you mentioned, of the expected 9 vacancies. We don't have a full year to wait for the process for academy graduates to take place. It takes easily 4 months to recruit them, get them through the appropriate backgrounds, et cetera. A 6-month academy, almost 7 months. And then there's a 14-week FTO program. So what I am doing, and I've actually shared with my staff to refocus our efforts for this year, we're really going to be hopefully focusing on getting more laterals over to the Park Police. We can get them in much quicker. The process is generally closer to 4 months or so. So out of that group, we expect about 80% to be laterals so that we can get up to speed by mid to late summer as quickly as possible. We do have a couple that we're very confident will be with us very soon. And it's my understanding we have at least 26 that have already applied to be members of the Park Police who are coming from other agencies and want to come to the Park Police. But it is a challenge, obviously, with the smaller agency.
Thank you. I appreciate the difference between
bringing on laterals and bringing on folks from the recruitment class, but does that mean, how are you set up with any individuals in the next recruit class designated for park
Right
police?
now, we have one in the current class, which we're happy about. We hope to have two in the next class. That is our goal, to at least have two. Ultimately, I like to see that ratio switch, whereby 80%, if you will, of our recruits, or our staff, are recruits eventually, because needless to say, they're that much younger, you can expect to keep them that much longer, so forth and so on. But there's always the challenge of, one, hoping they get through the academy, because that's never a given. And that speaks to the standards of the academy itself, which is a good thing.
And you've had enough success recruiting laterals to make this a viable
It's still
strategy?
early, it's very early, but right now the evidence suggests it's going to be a successful endeavor. But one of the things that we have found, and I'm quite sure any other agency within this region has found, the population of Montgomery County continues to explode, especially up north. And in certain locations where I think they've done a fantastic job in providing amenities that are park-related, whether it's South Germantown Park, so forth and so on, it's also created a strain, if you will, on resources. We rely a great deal on overtime and other programmed time, if you will, to cover those large events. But those large events are no longer the exception. They're almost really the rule in places like that. So that's where we're seeing the real acute outcomes, if you will, of the lower staffing, and hence the reason why we're really looking to get up to speed as quickly as possible.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. The chair of the PHED committee, please.
Thank you, Chief. I think this is the first chance I've had to be here in your role as chief, and I'm really delighted to see you in this role. I've got a lot of confidence in your work, having seen you in your leadership roles at MCPD over the years, and commendations to the commission for hiring you, and it's nice to see everyone, Captain. Thank you for being here. First of all, I wanted to really thank you for a comment you made about the crossings. I think probably the most dangerous place in the Montgomery County Park system is actually the crossings. You know, it's the place you're most likely to get injured, and it's the place we know is the most risky. I mean, there are other hot spots, I think, of maybe other issues, but
You literally have thousands of motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists coming into one place regularly.
a lot of conflicts. So I just want to thank you for highlighting that, and I really think what the Parks Department is doing now to re-engineer roads, the Little Falls Parkway, fixes that you made for safety there, is the right kind of way to combine engineering and enforcement. You know, it's not all about engineering, it's not all about being out there writing tickets, or it's not all about preaching. You also have to change the road design. And so just having strong leadership, collaborating within the department, within Parks and Police, I think is really getting results, and it's going to save lives, so thank you. And I really want to, I know the cable fund, the GO committee put some money on the list, the rec list, for some technology support, which will build into your public safety initiatives in some of your more challenging areas for with safety issues. And so I just wanted to highlight for my colleagues, if you probably followed this, but there's a little money on the rec list in the cable fund to support technology for, well, you're on the committee. Thank you. Next comment I want to make is sort of overarching. So first of all, just to help me understand, so there's 7 vacancies currently, and you're seeking to fill the vacancies?
Correct.
And then you're asking for 2 new positions as well?
We have chosen, the 2 new positions in question were for the new Wheaton headquarters building. We understand there are challenges with any budget, and ultimately we have to be able to satisfy the budget for all agencies. So we understand we have to do our part. So we were willing to basically take those 2 positions off, fill them with existing staff. We cannot obviously sustain that, because ultimately that will mean overtime and some other things as such. But we're willing to do it because we think it's that important, and I'm
Okay.
certainly happy to talk about the reasons why, but
Okay, thank you, Chief. I didn't quite follow that. So, Ms. Farag, is that, how would you characterize then? There are not two new positions?
Well, they originally asked for 2 new positions, but that was offered post receiving the budget. It was offered as an offered recommendation.
Okay, gotcha.
To reduce the budget by that amount. The headquarters doesn't open until May of 2020, which is the end of this fiscal year.
Okay. So here's why I want to accept that reluctantly offered reduction, and I appreciate your seeing the big picture here. There has been, over the years, repeated efforts to talk about really getting rid of the Park Police Department and putting it under the county. And the problem with that is that the personnel cost in the county is much higher than it is in the park system. And so it doesn't save money, it actually costs more money. So if you want to save money in the park, in policing of parks, you know, you want to keep the policing function in the Parks Department. And if you feel like there's efficiencies that can be made, then you make them in the Parks Department. You don't transfer them to where your base cost is way higher. So I just wanted to kind of make that comment today. I think we should accept this efficiency because if we're going to save money, we're going to have to find it within the Parks Police Department. And I think that's a good faith effort to address this overall question of how can we be more efficient? How can we not expand our head count? And I think we all need to take on this initiative of what's the overall FTEs in the county? And how can we do more with less? How can we use technology more? How can we reinvent ourselves? And, but at the same time, I'm concerned about the possibility of proposals to essentially get rid of the Parks Police. And I think a good faith opening statement is, we hear the budget issues and we're doing the best that we can do to save money. And there is no better way to save money than to save money within the Park Police Department. So accepting these reductions for you to figure out how you can be efficient, I think is crucially important.
I thank you for your comments. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, and let me say very clearly, I too am not in favor of not having a Parks Police. I think that it became very obvious on whatever day it was this week for your award ceremony, there's plenty of, unfortunately, there's plenty of work that you are doing, and you keep our parks safe. So I'm certainly a supporter of that. Councilmember Friedson, please.
Thank you for that, and I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of a couple items. One, the crossings, I couldn't agree more that I think these are the most, many of the most dangerous. I mean, the gang issue is a challenge in parks, and in our parks and in every park system throughout the region, I think probably in many other, metropolitan areas like ours in the country. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing to combat that in coordination with our partners, at every level of government and within government. I think it's really a testament to how, we're bringing everybody together to solve these really challenging issues that we face to keep our communities safe. And Chief McSwain, welcome, and look forward as well to working closely with you. If you could give a quick update, because in District 1, the Capitol Crescent Trail at Little Falls that you had mentioned, obviously a very hot button issue, not only due to safety, but also due to the traffic, both pedestrian and bike traffic, which is a heavily used trail, of course, and then vehicular traffic as well. If you could just give a quick update on where things stand with that. Obviously, it was a temporary solution that may not be temporary, and if you could just let us know about that.
No, and I think I appreciate the comments as well, because one of the things that we found that we can't just simply see locations like that as a temporary project, if you will. We have to really think in terms of long-term, and how can we basically find a happy median for all interested parties, whether it's the bicyclists who are very heavily present on that trail, the pedestrians, and of course the motorists. So about 3 or 4 months ago, we actually did a 30-day pilot, if you will, just to kind of assess, more or less an educational campaign, helping people with proper etiquette on the trails and those types of things. So we find that many times if there's a conflict, it's due to things as such. Whether it's those who are walking their dogs, they have multiple dogs, but the leash is like 8 feet long or so. You know, the bicyclists get a little upset over that. Or if they're large projects, large events, we deal with a lot of permits for a lot of different events. We've got one coming up, and you may have as many as 600 members who are part of that initiative, if you will. It may be a fundraiser or something like that. So what we're doing ultimately for things like that is working with the organizer up front to talk about some of the park rules and regs, but also providing the resources and staffing there. So at critical choke points, if you will, we may have an officer present to ensure that we keep flow moving back and forth. We're monitoring also the intersections. We're using technology whereby we can place a signboard up, and we put it in what we call stealth mode, meaning you don't see numbers, but it's actually recording. It gives us an idea of how many vehicles are going through at a certain location, how often, what are the speeds of those vehicles at any given time. So then when we go back, we understand what's the most critical time, whether it's speed enforcement or just simply education. And we also can educate the public on certain things as well in etiquette. We're also working with our the group that deals with the outreach within the PACP. I'm losing the acronym right now as far as the exact term. But it's the group that works with us with social media notices. And we're working with getting information out to, for example, bike groups or something that have a network within the region, so that we're all talking with one another, and none of the groups are necessarily seeing the other as the enemy, if you will. It's going to take a while. There's some human nature issues involved with that. But we'll continue to do so. We've identified at least 5 locations as such, based upon community feedback and also volume. And we'll continue to make ourselves present there on a regular basis. It's no longer just a short-term project. It's a regular check by patrol and special operations members to go by those locations as a part of their daily work, as opposed to just a short-term project, if you will.
The specific intersection of Capitol Crescent and Little Falls, as you know, we did have, unfortunately, a fatality, a gentleman driving a recumbent bike years ago. We immediately implemented the temporary change to the road diet that's still in place today, which definitely has been successful in reducing accidents. For the last year, we've been working with a engineering consultant to look at a series of alternatives, from a bridge to crossing at a signalized intersection to continuation of a modified road diet. We're getting ready to go to the planning board with a specific recommended option in the next month or two. Of course, there will be public hearings at the board when we do that. And then, of course, the funding implications would come to you subsequently in the budget for whatever option the planning board supports.
Great. And just a quick question then as well on the Wheaton headquarters in terms of the security. Are there any concerns that the reduction in change, I know there's only a couple months that would be potentially affected with May and June of the fiscal year, but there's also the training and onboarding of the position. Are there any concerns about security issues or your ability to keep that facility safe, not just for parks, but for the other county agencies that are there?
No, we can make it happen within that window of time. We will reassign personnel if necessary to make sure we have a presence there.
Well, I appreciate it. As someone with the trail, I'm a motorist, a pedestrian, and a bicyclist at that intersection, and I think a lot of people like me are themselves different users at different times of that. So I appreciate the hard work that you've put in. I've certainly learned something today. I definitely didn't know that there was deer contraception, and so I'm a supporter of contraception and access to it at every level. I thought that was for people, but it turns out it's for more than just people, so I appreciate that.
Okay, I'm going to leave that one alone, and with that, we're going to go to Mr. Albanaz, please. Yeah.
Wow. On a lighter note, I didn't want to miss the opportunity to just acknowledge Chief McSwain. I can speak in the first person about the dedication of your officers and how hard and diligently they work, especially on gang prevention. We've collaborated through the Street Outreach Network and the Recreation Department on midnight indoor soccer leagues, particularly in the Long Branch area. And it's often your officers that are there, way more than just ensuring security, but actively engaging with the youth and providing yet another really positive role model for our youth to be able to turn to. And I think, there are some reductions that are being considered within the recreations budget to scale back on some of those evening activities. And if anything, we should be enhancing them because it will save money later on down the line. But I wanted to take this opportunity, because I've been wanting to do this for years, to acknowledge that there are a lot of unfunded mandates that directly impact departments like Park Police. And I'll give the 4th of July fireworks as an example. They have been growing year after year after year, and I know that's putting a strain on overtime hours and capacity, particularly when you have vacancies. And so I think certainly, unfortunately not in this budget, there's just not enough time, but moving forward, I'd be very interested in working with your guys' office to identify those areas in which there's that gray where we're all coming together as county agencies, doing the best we can, but where frankly there needs to be a little bit more capacity, because as these events have grown, I'm starting to be concerned about the safety and security, not just from a traffic standpoint, but the crazy world that we live in right now. We have to be more diligent and proactive in ensuring that something terrible doesn't happen moving forward. So just want to put a placeholder there and want to review that at some later time. And I also want to acknowledge that there's strong interest in this council in expanding the hours of recreation facilities to go back to where we were pre-recession. And I want to acknowledge Councilmember Jawando, who is very interested in this area as well, but acknowledge also unfunded mandate. If we expand the hours of recreation facilities, more than 80% of our recreation facilities have jurisdiction with Park Police, and so that will potentially have ramifications on your staffing complement. So we just need to think about that as I think we do and have to restore those hours, because it will be important in the long term. And then finally, another area that I've taken special interest in is within our special needs community. We received an incredible briefing regarding a program I wasn't as aware of as I should have been, that is being spearheaded by MCPD to train officers on how to work with people with behavioral health needs, particularly autism. And I know that Park Police has been part of that effort, but I think moving forward, there's an opportunity for us to expand efforts like that, acknowledging the unique and growing needs of our population across the entire county. So just a few plugs there while we're on the record, but just want to acknowledge and congratulate you, Chief McSwain. I think we couldn't have found a better leader for this really important workforce. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And I will tell you that, one, I appreciate you sharing all of those matters, and we're happy to talk with you in the very, very near future. I am an absolute firm believer in the longer rec hours for our youth. As one who grew up in Prince George's County, I was fortunate to have a mother who, one, stressed education, but kept me involved consistently in one activity or another. Quite frankly, I just didn't have time to get in trouble, although I had obviously friends who unfortunately went a different direction. But ever since I came to this county, especially when I started in the East County region, it was very clear recreation needed to be present, and it needed to be present around the clock. I had the fortune of meeting Mr. Jawando many, many moons ago. But unless we get involved very early on, we'll see obviously the negative outcomes. I am certainly happy to work with Luis Cardona. He and I continue to work together and have been there for a number of years. And one of the things we've asked every park officer to do is essentially adopt a rec center. Every single day that they go out, there should be some place that they just simply stop by. So whether it's a rec center, it's an elementary school, doesn't have to be a formal program, it's just simply stopping in and developing a rapport. That is something that we're continuing to track and monitor, but we want them to realize that they do make a big difference, and we'll continue to do that. And then you talk about the mental illness and/or those with disabilities. We're in the process of sending every single officer within the Park Police through the crisis intervention training, and also others that deal with those who may have some disabilities. So whether it's a matter of de-escalation, or just simply understanding the difference between the child with autism or not, and how to function with the child as such or some other disability, we can hopefully be an asset as opposed to exasperating something.
Very good. Susan, is there anything else? If not, I think we can, is there any, is everybody okay with this budget? So it's going to be a 6-0 for the budget?
So, and that includes the recommended offered reduction?
Yes.
Okay.
Reluctantly, we're going to say that, but it's only for 2 months at this point, so.
Sad emoji, I think.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here, and lady. Thank you. Thank you. The PHED committee is actually going to go downstairs now. They're going to have continue their committee meeting, and we're going to continue ours right here.